Today, this podcast, it breaks the boundaries that we've ever done before for interviewing guests. Hollywood producer, four-time Emmy-nominated, shares what it took to be able to command millions of eyeballs, to be able to move it into real estate and create millions of dollars in value, not only personal branding, but getting more deals. This one is unlike anything we've ever done before. Enjoy.
Listening and hearing where they are and what they are and making them feel that you are with them and you're on that same team, it's vitally important.
I have one of those Hollywood camera snappers, right? And so 20-some years ago, my first sales mentors, we had this concept called Hollywood. And one of the greatest things that I learned about this kind of Hollywood sales environment that I grew up in was actually the power of silence and then just like camera angles. Hey, when I'm walking somebody's property, I don't even have to necessarily ask them about that water leak. I'll just look up at it, the camera angle looks at it, and just hold on it for a second. So many people are so caught up, they don't really appreciate what that pause and that silence can do for the scene.
I will tell you though, selling is not natural. It is not organic. It's really uncomfortable, really hard. Before a year and a half ago, I never had to really sell to make money. Now I sold a lot in my career. I sold shows, I sold creative, but for me, that wasn't selling. That was just being passionate about something that I loved and frustrated that I wasn't able to connect the dots on the other side. And I didn't think it as sales. Of course it was sales. Of course it was every time. And for me, I'm now learning, that to sell, what is it, Daniel Pink, to sell is human, right? It's everything we do. How did we get your girlfriend, your boyfriend? How did you get your best friend?
All right. Welcome to the Leads to Deals podcast, where we talk about everything from leads to deals and everything we talk about leads to deals. This podcast is brought to you by LamasuLeads.com, the industry's first enterprise level call center for outbound leads in real estate. If you need leads in real estate, visit LamasuLeads.com. Now, today's guest, he swapped the red carpet for real estate deals, and he sells with Hollywood precision. He's a four-time Emmy-nominated producer turned investor, now running various real estate models and products. He knows how to hook them fast, grab attention in seconds, and turn this emotion into attention in deals. So whether it's been negotiating multi-million-dollar TV contracts or just buying somebody's house at the kitchen table, he's here to drop what we consider universal sales truths and branding strategies that will make you unforgettable in any market. Welcome to the podcast, Brad Holcman.
Wow. Thank you. And thank you, Scott, for having me. And you've had a lot of my friends on this podcast, so I'm excited to chop it up with you.
Dude, it means a lot to me. I know that I knew who you were in this space. You'd crossed my radar a couple of times, but as I was going into your story, I said, oh, wait a minute. Brad might be able to answer one of these questions that I've had in my 23 years of sales. I have my answer. I want to hear yours. So
Yeah.
You have over 20 years in Hollywood.
Yes.
Every word was scripted, had to hook the audience and engage. And sales reps have scripts too. Now, some gurus, Brad, are like, hey, listen, no script. You need a freestyle. You need to be your own. Others are like, hey, here's the script. Here's the framework. So the Hollywood producer in you, should a closer master the script or throw it out and improvise?
So thank you. That's a big question. For one, I do believe it's to each his own. I think there are so many people do different things well and not well, but I do believe what is the best way that you are going to connect emotionally on the other side of that phone call, of that Zoom. Emotions are everything. People remember how you make them feel. So is it specific words? Is it your facial reactions? Is it listening? Is it regurgitating back what that individual said? Whatever it is to own. But the what you accomplish has to be crystal clear. You have to get to the destination, because if I'm driving and I need to get to Disneyland and I don't know where I'm headed, that's a problem. So you do have to have a framework. You have to have an outline. I don't believe in a sales call you should be scripted every word. I do believe there should be a framework and a journey. Sometimes, though, that journey, there's a detour and you've got to be open for it. But it's all about how do you make that individual feel and be listened to? They're likely in a distress situation, they're in an urgency situation, and you are the one that's going to help them out of that. So how do you, if you're on the other end of it, you want to feel seen and heard. You want to feel like I get you get me. We're the same person. So I believe that you shouldn't really be scripted because you're going to be responding to that individual. But certainly you need to know really where your destination is.
You know, Brad, I had one of my first sales mentors, and I'm 21 years old, and I'm working at this crazy sales track. And the guy who gave me my script, his name was Ray Rickert, and he was like, "Hey, man, I designed this script. You may not know this, but every single word that I'm saying, I am saying with intention. And very rarely am I saying something I've never said before." But he said, "The advantage that you have, Scott, is you get to be better than me." And I'm like, "Okay, how do I get to be better?" He was like, "I can only be this. You get to master this, learn this, and then sprinkle yourself on top." And that's that kind of level up, I think, with scripts. It's like, I want to understand, I know where this process is going to go. I know the words that I should say. And once I master that, then I get to have a little fun and improvise. And isn't that kind of how it happens in the Hollywood too? Like you always hear, like, this scene was unscripted and Brad Pitt said this, or this person did this that was off the script. But 90% of that screen or 95% of that screen was actually scripted.
Yeah, so there's a process in Hollywood. So there's a process in scripted television and unscripted television, and I've been in both. In scripted television, it starts with a brainstorm, right? It starts with here's everything, and then you start putting words to paper, and then you do table reads. So then now you're actually reading the actual script, but you're revising, revising, revising. That table read then turns into the produced script. Then you start shooting the show. There are writers on set with a red pen that's continually updating. So there's a lot of takes. So it's a continual process. So what you end up seeing on screen, and in fact, after you even shoot, then it goes to the edit bay. And in the edit bay, you're constantly revising and revising and revising. So what you see on screen, is it word for word of the script? Absolutely not. Is it generally 90% there 100% of the time? You can't improv really scripted television, but there is a process to get there. So that individual, that actor, by the time that they're delivering the message that you see on screen, they've probably repeated it hundreds of times. So the same thing with the sales call is you can start with the script and a framework and keep repeating, but once you get to the show, once you start there, yes, you have words, you've practiced, you've put your personality in there. So it is somewhat of a script. It's your script, but you're improvising as such because you have places to go with that. In film and television, not so much. You know, you kind of just follow the path, but certainly with hearing somebody's journey, you want to match them. You want them to be heard. You want to follow their journey, and then you want to say, listen, hey, the car that I'm driving, be the passenger because we want the same thing. You want to get out of this deal, and I want to buy this deal, and we're going to match in the middle.
Talk to us about the power of voice inflection. And so we have the script, we established that there's these lines that we want to say. And I'm sure you've seen it as a producer and also as a sales trainer or guys out there selling. Like you can have the words, but not deliver them. Walk me through how to emphasize and how important it is.
You want to match the tone on the other side. And that again is how you feel, right? So if you're talking to somebody and you're a bit soft spoken and somebody comes at you at an 11, is that something that you're going to connect with? Absolutely not. What does that make you feel? That makes you feel maybe challenged and scared a little bit. But if somebody is soft spoken on the other side and you listen, there's an empathetic response, you're feeling them, you're taking a bit more of a pause. You're repeating what they say so that they know they're being heard for sure, but also that you know that you are hearing them correctly. It's so important to match tone with tone. That's probably one of the biggest things that I see people have a hard time with because you go in with a plan, you go in with the script, you really want a transaction. And I don't believe in business transactions are long term goals that anyone should have. It's about building relationships, it's about planting that seed and knowing that when you plant a seed, it doesn't sprout overnight. There's going to be somewhat of a journey. I know there's a ton of statistics that thrown out, but your first touch is likely not going to be a sale. It's not, there's not going to be there. It's going to be 5, 6, 13 touches that you're going to do. So you've got to build that journey. So your first touch, you've got to understand who they are, what they are, where they're from, and match it. Now, if somebody comes at you in 11 and incredibly aggressive, probably not to be aggressive. You know, sometimes there's a little bit of a different way of approaching somebody, but I do think that listening and hearing where they are and what they are and making them feel that you are with them and you're on that same team, it's vitally important.
I have one of those Hollywood camera snappers, right? And so 20 some years ago, my first sales mentors, we had this concept called Hollywood. Like, hey, listen, we are here to put on the show. We are performance artists, if you will. And it's not to be in a manipulative way, but if somebody's going to come in and drop $10,000, $20,000 on a first visit or whatever product it is we're selling, we need to make sure we understand that, like, okay, great. Now I'm going out there to get my customer. Boom, game time. And then we go out there and we are Hollywood with it. And one of the greatest things that I learned about this kind of Hollywood sales environment that I grew up in was actually the power of silence and then just like camera angles. And I'm saying camera angles as into when it's face-to-face sales, where you would look at. And I used to, follow another real estate coach, and he would say something along the lines is like, hey, when I'm walking somebody's property, I don't even have to necessarily ask them about that water leak. I'll just look up at it, the camera angle looks at it, and just hold on it for a second. And that uncomfortable sound. Well, we had this leak the other day, and this is this and this. And I think so many people are so caught up, they don't really appreciate what that pause and that silence can do for the scene.
Yeah, I think, you know, for one, people, the number one thing that people love is the sound of their own voice. So if you are buying something or trying to convince somebody to sell something, you need to have them hear their own voice as much as possible. So just thinking of those uncomfortable pauses, that will allow them to fill in that gap many times because you're trying to extract as much information out of that individual as possible. So, one, people want to talk, they want to tell you their story, give them room for it. And just thinking in those uncomfortable pauses, that's going to allow them. The uncomfortable pause in television, it's funny. If you saw my notes that I've given over the course of my career, it's always pausing. For whatever reason, Hollywood editors love to go boop, 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 just fast paced, back and forth dialogue. But the gold is in that messy middle, is in that uncomfortable. What is going to happen? Where's this going to take? Where's this journey? Is it going to be a left turn? Is it going to be a right turn? Are we going to stop? Are we going to start? And just being slow and steady with the conversation is vitally important. Also, I would say at the end of it too. So at the beginning before you respond, but also at the end. So what I do in television is I yell cut, but I only yell cut. I do not stop rolling. I keep going because what cut does, and at the end of a question, it causes you, okay, I'm not on. I stop responding and you just pause. Undoubtedly, they keep going. Now they've taken a pause themselves to kind of regather their thoughts. And many times the gold is after the cut. So the same thing with a sales conversation is after that person's answered, in your head, you'll cut, don't respond, take a moment. Undoubtedly, now they're going to give you even more gold. Because if you just thought of what your next question is going to be, and all of a sudden after they stopped, you started with your question, you're probably missing out on something that they would have said if you've just taken that pause and that cut.
I wish I had it all within arm's reach, but there was recently a macro study done on consumer sentiments, like what consumer sentiments were done. This was at the collegiate level, at least the testing was done. And, from fear to trust to desire to uncertainty, blah, 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 all these emotions. And then they scored them as to which ones caused a sale to go through. And they were out of the order, I think, that most average people would think. The number one emotion to get somebody to purchase wasn't desire, wasn't need, wasn't greed. It was fear. And I said, wow, this is powerful. Now there's fear of missing out. That's a big one. Fear of what happens if I don't buy this product, fear of the uncertainty. I mean, there's all these emotions, but fear was like 9.2 and all the rest were like sevens and eights and da, da, da. And I thought about it. I said, you know what? That's actually what we're looking for. When I go to a movie theater, Brad, and I'm in there, I'm so invested in this. And there's a guy, somebody's chasing somebody with a knife, and I'm scared, and my heart's beating. I know no one's about to run through and stab me. I know it's on a screen in front of me, but I also think that's what a well oiled sales presentation does. It invokes those emotions, it helps them be able to see, even though they know that when I future pace them, I'm still here today, but I want them to feel the emotions of, again, it's not all fear, but what happens if they don't? But also, I want to paint that picture and have them see today what spending next Christmas in their dream house feels, looks, smells like. And so I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on that?
It's funny. What what would happen if you don't sell your house today? What would happen if you don't find your dream house today? So it's those are, you know, they're fear-based questions, but also lead to happiness and lead to I'm envisioning the future, and I think it's vitally important to get them thinking about that. So using there's a fine line with fear. You don't want to sound salesy with fear. We've known the late night infomercials that are it's limited time only, and this, but you've been seeing the same infomercial for 5 years. You don't want to have false scarcity and false fear, but and that's why you need to listen, and you need to make it personal, and you need to make it personal to their story. So if you've heard somebody they're behind on their property taxes, the city's knocking at their door, utilities are off, that's a real fear. So you can play into the real fear. You don't have to pour gasoline on that fear. In fact, your job is to solve. Your job is to make that fear go away. So you should understand what the fear is, and then your job is to solve that problem. And if you solve the problem the fastest, it's an Hormozy style of thinking of what the Grand Slam offer. If you're there, that you can solve the fear the fastest and putting the most money in their pocket and make all their fears go away, you're going to win that. You're going to win that deal every time. I would also say, AI right now is probably the biggest fear of all of them, and a lot of it is because one, people don't know what it is, or they fear it. But what you need to do is AI is the greatest thing that's ever happened to us. It is by far the greatest thing. What you need to understand is what ingredients that you have that make you distinct and different to amplify your voice, your message, your opportunities with AI. So again, fear from a sales perspective is incredibly important to understand on the other side. That's what causes people to act when they're fearful. So most of the time, yes, you may stand there scared and not do anything, but you're either going to run towards the action, run away from the action. There's going to be a reaction. So you need to elicit that out of there, but you cannot pour gasoline on that fear. They're going to shut you down. They're going to clam up. But if you are the one that you've established this relationship, this empathetic relationship, you've matched their voice, you understand, you hear their problems, you hear their fear, you hear their pains, and then you're the hero of the story. Sorry, they're the hero of the story, and you're the guide, because they're the ones that have the asset for you, and you're going to guide them to the promised land of whatever fears that they have. You're the one that's going to make it go away. So that emotion, again, it's people remember how you make them feel. Fear is probably the biggest emotion, the biggest sense that we have, that causes people to act or not act.
To me, I have a educate first, then help philosophy. And I'm perfectly fine with telling it how it is and perfectly fine giving people alternate solutions. But I think a lot of times we don't take that time. And it's not that I'm trying to make them fearful. I owe it to them. I almost have a fiduciary duty to let you know exactly how I see the market from my perspective, because my investor mind is 7 steps ahead of the customer, the standard homeowner's mind. So I want to walk them through all those types of concepts. I want to ask you though, Brad. I've seen online that kind of trashing cold calling in the past, or realtors and cold. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I saw it. I said, "Stop! Send this over to my team. Look, he's going to come on the Cold Call Kings podcast." So I want to know, what are your thoughts on cold calling? How people are messing it up, and kind of what you've observed?
Um, So it was probably 3 or 4 years ago. A friend of mine, Jamil Damji, who's a wholesaler out of Arizona, I had a television show with him. He's the single person that I give credit to for getting me into real estate. So either thank him or not thank him for that. He's a dear friend and an incredible individual. And I hate everything about cold calling. So what did he do? He put me on one of his lives. He gave me a list of distressed homeowners, and we were live cold calling distressed homeowners. And I was the one that was trying to get them to sell their house. So, and he did it because I hated cold call. I hated everything about it because I know I don't answer my phone ever. I don't want to answer my phone if I'm in distress either, because I don't want somebody to see me in that way. I want I want the Instagram scene, like everything's roses and rainbows. I don't want in my darkest fear. And during that hour, what he convinced me was that phone call that you have is exactly the phone call that they need. You are the person that is going to guide them to the promised land. They just don't know it. They may not take your call. They are going to be angry and awful. They're gut 99% of those calls at that first touch, they don't want to hear from you, even if they have the biggest problem and you can solve their problem. But know that you are there to save. So this is a little bit of a tangent. I became a first responder during COVID because I always wanted to be the person that ran towards danger and not run away from it. And there was an incident I won't get into that happened many years ago that always on my mind that was like I ran away instead of running towards danger. So I became a firefighter, and I became a firefighter because I simply wanted to be that person that helped and saved. And that's the mentality I believe people need with cold calling. So I've changed my tune on cold calling. If you approach it from a first responder mentality, saying, I am knocking on your door on your worst day. A firefighter never enters a home on a beautiful sunny day and nothing is wrong, right? So it is your worst day, and I'm here to save and help you. You do not want me there. The last thing you want is me there because of the incident that's happening. So you as a cold caller, if you have a mentality, they do not want me there, but I know I have the skills and tools to help them. That's everything. For me, that mentality changed everything versus I'm just running through a dialer, cold calling. Again, you have to understand there is a human being on the other end that is in trouble, and you have the tools to save them. You are not going to be an asshole. You are not going to be, sorry, my language, but you are not going to be that person. What you are going to be is empathetic. You are going to want to help them. And for me, that approach you'll still get knocked down 99% of the time, but that's okay because it's that 1% that goes, I hear you, I see you, thank you. I've been waiting for this call. That's what you need to be, that first responder, that hero of that story every time that you pick up the phone and call.
It's so funny. Like literally off screen over here, we have people that we do a lot of video stuff, collateral for our customers in our wholesaling business. And we just came up with this phrase the other day, and it's in one of our prominent videos that we don't just buy homes, we're financial first responders. Swear to God, this is literally within the past, I don't know, 10 days. We just came up with this line. It's so powerful. It's so powerful. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what we are, guys. This is it. We're financial first responders. We're not just buying their homes, we're buying their debt, we're buying their peace of mind, we're buying their stress, we're buying all these negative things in their lives. And what I also appreciate about cold calling is because there's levels to this. You got cold calling, then you got maybe acquisition specialist and all the way up the chain. And I think cold calling is no different than going to some type of acting school. Like you're going to, or working the high school plays or whatever. There's a place where you need to get your reps in and understand the mechanics of things and do it at scale so that way you can speed your education curve. And while it has a place and not a place in everybody's business, outbound really is one of the best ways to start to understand human psychology and conversations faster than you ever could if you only waited for like that one holy grail pitch every 5 days. It's like, no, I can talk to a bunch of people today and start getting these marbles out and perfecting my craft.
Well, I will tell you though, selling is not natural. It is not organic. It's really uncomfortable, really hard. Before a year and a half ago, I never had to really sell to make money. Anything. Now I sold a lot in my career. I sold shows, I sold creative, but for me, that wasn't selling. That was just being passionate about something that I loved. and frustrated that I wasn't able to connect the dots on the other side, and I didn't think it as sales. Of course it was sales. Of course it was every time. And for me, I'm now learning, that to sell, what is it, Daniel Pink, to sell is human, right? It's everything we do. How did we get your girlfriend, your boyfriend? How did you get your best friend? How did your job? Everything's about selling. It's just the technique. And really a lot of selling comes down to is, are you the one that's going to solve the other person's problems? Do you have that solution? And if you do, that's the likelihood of that sale is much greater. It may not happen every time. Same thing with a relationship. Are you the one that comes in and exactly what that individual is looking for? Or maybe they weren't exactly looking for, but you've triggered something that they should have been looking for. So if they're not thinking of selling their house and you call, and all of a sudden you come with a no brainer, you're too stupid to say no type of solution, then you're going to do something. So I think selling is it's probably one of the most difficult and uncomfortable skills that anyone has. But just like life, every time you pick up the phone and call, every time you talk to somebody, that's one more rep forward, one more step forward. Nobody created a building, or built a building overnight. Most of the work happened below the surface. Everybody goes, "Oh my God, that building just popped up overnight." Well, you didn't see the 2, 3 years of planning, of building, of anything that happened under the ground. So that's what you need to do to be a great salesman. It's all the things that you can't see. So then all of a sudden, when the building happens overnight and you're a super sales guy, it's all that work that was put in that nobody saw.
Dude, I love it. I want to talk about co-living, I want to talk about investing, I want to talk about a couple of things, but I want to be honest too. Before we started, we kind of went down a tangent about realtors. I will tell you my 2 cents. It's kind of in line with what I was saying earlier. When I have realtors reach out for my outbound lead generation service, maybe 1 out of 100 I'll even want to talk to. I find that the mindset gap, it's like the Grand Canyons from most, and I'm going to stereotype here. It is what it is. I'm sorry, my realtor friends, but between an investor and a realtor, and the investors are so hungry. They're there in the moment. They're trying to get it. They have pie in the sky visions. They got goals. They're working the out of every lead. I mean, they're really into it. And most of my realtors are on like, what's the least amount of effort I can do to pay my bills? And so you'll get these people, and I'm like, well, actually, I appreciate realtors, Brad, because they turn down my customers when they should have helped my customers. And now they come to me and I get to get a flip that they easily should have put online. So, what's kind of your, now that you've gotten out of Hollywood, gone into investing, they're in that world, what's your thoughts on realtors?
Well, first of all, I'm still in Hollywood. I'm
Okay,
just
cool.
doing it on my own way. I'm
I
producing
love
shows
it.
now with some amazing investors, but on the realtor side, um, this is a whole hour conversation. Um, it's really easy to get a realtor license. It's really hard to be a realtor. So there's a very big difference between a license and actually defining yourself as a realtor. I don't know what the exact statistics are, but what percentage of realtors have more than 3 transactions? 98% of them, 99%. That's You're not a realtor if you're not transacting. That the whole point of it is to do it. So from a realtor, well, one, let me just take a step back. I believe, and this is somewhat, it's not controversial. It's not enough to be controversial, but there's only one person that determines price. There's only one, the buyer. The buyer is the only one that determines price. Because if I'm a seller and said, "Here's my house that's worth $1 bajillion," and the buyer is like, "Nope, it's worth $1," the transaction's not going through. If a seller goes, "Here, it's $1," and the buyer says, "Great, it's $1," the transaction goes through. So for one, realtors do not determine price. For one, they do not. But realtors should be the glue between a buyer and seller to determine price. I am tired of realtors going, "Yeah, well, that's my seller. That's what my seller's offer is." What You don't get paid realtor unless you actually transact. You shouldn't have a client that should be unrealistic in their pricing strategy. The whole point of this is to transact. So I'm tired of realtors that represent sellers that are like, "Sorry, sorry." Well, why are you wasting your time? Time is everything. So that's on one end. On the other end, from a realtor standpoint, the job is not just to buy or not just to sell. That is something, that's maybe step one. The job is to meet, is to listen, to hear what are the needs of that individual, and I'm going to go find those needs. Here's the beauty of real estate. There's something like 12, I think it's 12 million homes that are in distress right now. I think that there probably is even more than that. Those are 12 million homes that aren't being represented for the most part. So if I'm a realtor, I want to swim in an ocean where there's lots of fish. And I don't care how many people are swimming in the ocean, because if you fish in the ocean, you're going to catch something. Right? So it's a big ocean, there's a lot of people, a lot of fish. Go there. And for me, what realtors, I believe, if I were to give any advice, I'm just out of college, I don't know what I'm going to do. I heard about this real estate thing. You need to be an investor's realtor. And what does that mean? That means, one, you're going to outwork everybody, because as an investor, I'm making offers every day. All of my offers as a buyer are, quote, unreasonable. But again, I said this earlier, I'm the only one that determines the price of a house, because if you don't have a buyer, it doesn't matter if there's a seller out there. So I'm going to make these, what, quote, unreasonable offers. Now, they're not unreasonable because they're priced as is. It's the seller that many times is unreasonable. So it's a realtor that has to connect the dots. Okay, you're offering this. Can you justify that price? Absolutely. 100% of my offers I can justify with an Excel spreadsheet that outlines my pro forma. Here's why I need to buy it as such. Here's all the holding costs. Here's all the buy costs, the sell costs. Here's the renovation costs. Um, Here's why, and I need to make this much money. This is what determines the price that I'm buying. Right. So you need to have a realtor that understands the investor mind. Why do I say an investor realtor? The hardest thing that a realtor um, is hard to get is a buyer and a seller. Most of the time, if you're a retail buyer, you're going to buy one, maybe two, maybe three homes in your life. That means you're going to sell one or two or three in life. Is that a business that you want to be a part of? No. Me as an investor, I'm looking to buy 10 to 12 homes a year. What does that mean? 10 to 12 transactions. Oh, wait. When I buy a home, I also flip. So I'm going to sell homes. What does that mean? 10 to 12 transactions. So for me, one client, I could have 20 to 24 transactions of a single realtor. I literally could pay the salary of one. If the only client they have was me, that's their year salary. Now, if they had two of me or three of me or four of me and five of me, that's it. So I do value realtors. I just value the realtors that understand the business. And the business, for me, most transactions don't happen at the retail stage. They happen at the investor, and the most transactions happen on that stage. I think it's a really easy to sell a luxury home, a beautiful home. You don't have to do anything. The pictures take itself. The description writes itself. You don't have to do anything. You know, but it takes skill to buy and sell a property that is not up to code, cannot be sold retail. But then there's many more investors out there that are looking to buy these properties. So, I think realtors, there's not a school for any of this, and there should be. There's somewhat programs out there. But if I was going to tell somebody, the opportunity of a lifetime right now is to be an investor's realtor, and go down that path.
First off, you always hear these things. You say, okay, well, that's more like ephemeral. You hear about it, you never experience it. My grandmother recently passed away. She left a property in very rural Virginia to my uncle. The home was built in the 1800s, Brad. And I mean, it was rough and tough. And the family asked what I thought about it. Say, hey, listen, it's well outside of where I would want to be at. I would just call a traditional realtor and just have him list. He didn't have the capital to be able to make it pretty. The realtor drives, I mean, we're talking rural Virginia. So I don't know how long of an hour she drove to the house, sat with him, and just looked around and said, yeah, I wouldn't be able to list this for you. You would need to clean this up, fix this up, da, da, da. And she was okay without getting a contract signed today. She was okay with telling him to go somewhere else. And she was okay with letting that go. It blew my mind. So they came back and they told me, they were like, hey, Scott, this, I was like, No, no, get her back on the phone and tell her you want to list it as is. You just want to sell it as is. You don't have the capital to do that. And, he wanted 100 for the property. She said that he would only get about 60 if she listed it. And I think in her head, she was just like, why should I take a small commission at 60 versus hopefully maybe this guy miraculously comes up with $40,000 to fix it and I can get whatever. Anyways, selling it as is, he ends up getting 155. 155,000, that realtor, because of me telling her no, but I couldn't believe somebody didn't just say, okay, well, hey, listen, if you don't have the resources, because he told her the whole time I'm never going to be able to get this fixed up, why not just take a crack at it for what the market will bear? But she wouldn't. And I said, man, that's why I don't do with that. I was actually working on a pad split property, and that's how I'll pivot into that, in Petersburg, Virginia. So talk to me about yourself in either co-living or affordable housing, because as I've gone through your journey, I see that's like really part of how you're trying to make an impact in real estate.
Yeah, so there's two aspects to this. So I'll talk about affordable housing, and then I'll talk about co-living and pad
Okay.
split.
So
So
you see these as
um,
two separate journeys,
they're two
affordable.
they're two separate, completely.
Interesting.
There
Educate.
there there there's a crossover. So if you look at a Venn diagram, there's definitely a crossover. Um, but affordable housing right now for me is overall is the real challenge. New builders aren't building affordable housing. It makes absolutely no sense. The cost of construction, and the individual that will be able to qualify for affordable housing, it makes zero business sense whatsoever. So the product out there is distressed properties. So that's the affordable housing. So that's the business that I'm in today. And I learned this from friends of mine, also had a television show with me, Dedrick and Crystal Polite. They have a philosophy, and they're based out of just outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. Buy low, sell low. That's their philosophy,
Buy low, sell low. When
right?
was the last time you heard that one, folks?
Never,
Yes.
never. And what their philosophy was is, yes, they are also wholesalers. They are investors. You always want to buy low. Nobody's ever saying buy high, right? I always, so that variable stays the same. But the, oh my goodness, sell low, what does that mean? That means that your renovation has to be on point, perfect for the environment. You know that because you're going to sell low, that all that you can control. That here's the other thing that it's funny, when I looked at all of the details of a real estate transaction, there's actually one thing that a investor can control. The only thing, it's how much you buy the house. That's the only. I can't control the renovation. I can't control permitting. I can't control who walks through the door when I sell a house. I can't control the renter. I can't control taxes. I can't, nothing. The only thing you can control is if you buy. So if you buy right, what is your philosophy? The philosophy and the polites, and now me, is to sell low. What does that do? One, that locks you into a renovation that's sustainable and attainable. It locks you into a buy price that basically eliminates 99% of the product out there. So you're super clear in what you buy. But also, when you sell low, do you sell slow or do you sell fast? You sell fast. If you watch Million Dollar Listing and all the reality shows out there, it's all about breaking records. It's breaking records. For- That's great at a very luxury level. That's great for a realtor. As an investor, I don't want to break any records. I want to sell my house fast. And I want to know that I'm priced right because I bought right, not because I sold right, but I bought right because I can't control anything about that. So that philosophy is what I do. Now, also, when the sell low, I take it one step further. I look at the median sale price of any county. I want to be well under that, because if you look at the product, there's very little product out there of well under the sale price, because it's all new builds, big renovations. People want to go bigger and bigger and bigger. And I want to service the massive amount of Americans that have never bought a home, that don't know that they can afford a home, because there are a tremendous amount of products out there that you literally. I sold a home a couple months ago. 297,500 was the sale price. At closing, they wrote a check for $832. They bought a $297,500 home for 800, I forgot, just over $850. There is a one, I bought right, me. I renovated right. I sold well under the appraisal. Well under the appraisal. So had an FDA loan, first time home buyers. They brought zero to the table, only closing costs. I gave them a $5,000 credit at close to pay for the closing costs to make it even easier for them. And their appraisal was at $325,000. So they walked into equity. They walked it to the closing table with an $850 check. They could afford the mortgage at the with the FDA loan. Everybody, not they didn't win. I won. I made a massive killing. Why? Because I bought right. That homeowner never thought of home ownership because they didn't have the capital that they could bring to the table. Well, they did because there are other products out there. The fearful is it going to appraise right? Is it going to, am I going to have equity? I don't want to be under walking in, to the door. So that's for me about affordable housing. There is a big open market for buying right and selling low and selling under that. Most of America lives in these places. They're not in the city areas, but you go a half hour, 45 minutes outside major cities, there's a lot of distress out there that's not being taken care of. Co-living is the future. It's already the future in major European cities and Asian cities. It's the living in shared housing is more of the norm. So you think about it as, a lot of people compare it to a college dorm. It's not. It's not a college dorm. But it is the mentality of it, meaning there are rooms, there are shared baths and shared kitchens, shared common spaces. And I believe that there's only so much land and so much access to metropolitan and major cities that you have to either what's happening is building these luxury apartment complexes, which is getting rid of most of the people that could afford because luxury complexes mostly are geared towards younger individuals. Younger individuals haven't started making money. So the only people that can afford are parents paying for those luxury apartment buildings. Um, I believe co living is a combat because if I'm a waiter, for example, am I going to make more money in a downtown restaurant or am I going to make more money at a rural, diner? You're going to make more money downtown, but I can't afford it. So now I'm living 45 minutes, an hour outside a city just to make that extra money. But now my lifestyle, I have to drive an hour back and forth. It's horrific. It's horrible. So for me, co-living is one of the perfect ways to combat that at all ages, wherever life that you're in. And I believe that housing laws are going to eventually kind of open up and allow for this. In fact, a friend of mine he's a pad split executive and he's just out of Atlanta. And we came up with this plan. He did, and I poured gasoline on it. First responders, right? So, first responders, going back to them, if you live in Chicago, New York, LA, Dallas, wouldn't it be awesome if your first responders actually lived in the city that they served? They don't right now. I am a firefighter just outside of Charlotte. Almost half of our staff are an hour away because I live in a nice area, but they can't afford this area. I'm a volunteer. I'm not they're full-time firefighters. But if we could provide housing for our first responders inside the communities that they live in, so not only do they live and serve their own community, that's what co-living does. Co-living is an incredible affordable product that also promotes something that I don't think we're doing enough of. We've lost the face-to-face interaction. And what co-living does is promotes community and it promotes conversation. And I'm not going to mention what's happening in America right now, but I just did. But boy, what if we actually talk to each other more and we had more built-in communities? And I think that's what co-living does. The last thing about co-living, what I didn't mention at all, there's all these benefits. I didn't mention money. It is a cash cow for an investor. It is a crazy cash cow. So in full disclosure, I haven't done this yet, but I'm actively looking right now. Is you buy a distressed property, 2,000 square foot or higher. You then renovate towards a co-living property, which is essentially the same renovation as anything else you would do. You just put up a couple more walls. Now you have a renovated property you bought it as a distressed property and then you refinance out so you get all your money out of the property that you put in because you bought less, you've renovated, now it's appraising at a higher amount, so you get all that money out, so now I'm in for zero. And then a co-living property cash flows minimally, if you're doing it right, 1,500 to 2 grand a month. So now I have no money in, And now my cash flow is 1,500 to 2 grand. And I own the property, not outright, but I don't have any money in the property. And now I get all the tax benefits. And that is in addition to everything that I talked about why co-living is amazing and great. And that's where I firmly believe co-living, it's not the future, it's the now. And if you're to get into real estate, if you want, again, I'm flipping homes because I needed cash. Now I don't need cash. What I need is to buy and hold properties. Why am I going to buy hold a single family if I can buy a property that is a single family house by code, but actually cash flows as a multifamily? It is a per door transaction. So for me, co living, if you don't know about it, Google search, talk to me. I'm friends with some of the biggest co living individuals in the country. They are doing amazing things for the communities that they have co living properties in, and they're making bank.
Yeah, I want to give flowers to your buddy over at Pad Split and anybody in that organization. My reality came from just our portfolio in Florida with my business partner down there. We had 30 some single families, Airbnbs, most of them long term holds, just waiting to liquidate them in 2 or 3 years as the market came up. And the only consistent bright green number every month were our pad splits. Everything else that we made in profit always just went to a pool for repairs, literally. And I was just like, bro, why are we not just why screw an Airbnb? The Airbnbs are done. Let's flip whatever we can over to pad split. And so I just saw it on the P&L. I was like, well, I don't want to just make money when we sell it. Like, I got it. Can I make some coin along the way? And so that's when I really started going into pad split. And I think it's a wonderful platform. So for you guys or gals who, if it's available in your market, I personally am a user. We have a number of pad splits. I love it. I think it's a great infrastructure. It allows me to focus on what I need to focus on, which is the acquisition and the build outs. But I think it's a good one. And I add this to you. I just read an article. Buffett just dropped $1 billion into Lennar and DR Horton within the past few weeks. And it wasn't for their new home, it was for their build to rent programs. So everybody's coming for this. And either Wall Street's going to devour us or we're going to get a little bit smarter and be more nimble. And we're going to offer the affordable housing. Because if we don't, it's all going to go back up to New York.
Yeah, co-living is a model that you can start. If you are new to real estate and you're hearing this for the first time, it is 100% a model that is figure outable. There's a lot of information out there. Also, PadSplit's a great organization where they will help you buy, they will help you renovate, and they will help you not staff fill the house. The other thing just about co-living too is um, what's amazing about establishing a community is that you have eyes within the house. So if you own a house and you rent it out to a single family, you're not going to have eyeballs on that house. Who knows what they're doing? And I know, I'm sure you have houses yourself and friends. There are horror stories. I didn't go into that house in 6 months, and what I saw was an unbelievable disaster. The great thing about a co-living house, because of common spaces, you as an owner can go into those common spaces, so you have eyes on your house. But also, when you have people that are unrelated living together, it is amazing at how they have eyeballs on each other. They do not allow that house to go into distress. So there is definitely facts of co-living properties, less maintenance over years because of the individuals taking care of that property. It is, I don't think there is a losing scenario. Yes, there are a lot of things that you have to figure out. How do you get 8 unrelated people living in a house and have them all deal with each other? How do you work out all of the logistics? Here's the good thing: just like everything that's been done, there's been a path that's been paved ahead of you. Don't create and don't pave your own path. Find the mentor, find the individual. You, Scott, have done it. There are other people. Learn from people that are already doing it. It's so important. Nothing in real estate you have to figure out yourself. That's one of the I just was having a conversation with a friend, and I'm so passionate about real estate. One, because I didn't know about it for 20 years, so I'm a little frustrated on that end. But real estate is, I believe, the only industry that no matter who you are, where you are, where you live, how much you have in your bank account, what education you have, anybody can do it today and make money. You do not have to have a dollar in your bank account to win in real estate. You do not. if you have $1 billion, you actually may be worse off than somebody that has no money because of mindset and how you approach the business. So for me, one of the reasons I've been so passionate about we didn't even talk about this, but the television shows that I produce, I want them to be attainable and relatable because there's a Bob out there and a Nancy out there that's sitting there that's going, I don't know what to do in life. I'm so behind on my bills. I'm so behind on everything. I don't know what to do. But if they turn on the television show and happen to watch one of my shows, I'm showing you that there is a way, that there is a way forward and a path forward. And real estate for me is the answer. You don't have to have a degree, you don't have to have a license. You just have a drive and a hunger. And frankly, maybe a phone that can call people, but also a phone that can educate you, and eventually then you get mentored, then you go higher up. But boy, real estate for me is the reason why I left the corporate television world was because I knew I could replace my income in a world that could happen quickly if I wanted to. Wholesaling is a quick transaction, but also long term wealth when you buy and hold. It has the perfect balance. W 2 employees, you get a paycheck every other Wednesday. But if you stop working, the paycheck stops. Real estate can be the gift that keeps on giving. And that's where I'm so passionate about everybody getting into real estate. There's so much opportunity out there. You just have to find what works for you. And it took me a while to figure out what works for me. I did everything. And then I finally landed on, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what keeps me up at night and that gets me up in the morning.
I think there's still so much that we could have deep dived on, and I have a huge topic list we didn't even get to touch. But I would be remiss to not pick your brain on one more thing that I think that you could offer an interesting perspective of, and that's the impact of AI on Hollywood and then also real estate. Because I have these visions of grandeur about how it's going to impact Hollywood, and I hear these news articles, but I just want to hear from somebody actually in it. What do you see?
Yeah, I don't want AI to take my job. I want to take on AI. I think that's the simple, no matter what industry it is. And I think Hollywood is such a old school industry that they are fearful. And then they have their wall. Here's the beauty of Hollywood. For me to step out of the spotlight of Hollywood, still in it, but still step out of the W 2 of it, I've been able to take advantage of that. I'm the one of the only ones telling the inside stories. I'm the only one that's taking all my creative learning and understanding and what I did with my television shows and help people like you and individuals with their brands and to make them distinct and different. So that's the beauty of it. But that's also the problem right now. The problem is everybody's fearful. I've got all this IP, I've got all this licensed product. You're not going to stop a machine and a robot. So what I want to be doing is how do I utilize and amplify and make everything better as a result of AI? So the thing with AI, there's a lot of systems in place in television. There is a somewhat of a paint by numbers production process. Almost all of it is pen to paper. Very few automation that happens. The beauty of AI is it can automate so many things. What does that mean? Things can be produced faster and cheaper. If I'm a consumer, I just want more product. I want the best. I don't care about your process. So if I can get more product because it's cheaper and I can produce more, isn't that what's better? So what is happening is Hollywood's not moving at the speed that it needs to be. So brands are now. So brands are taking over. Brands are hiring what's called a CCO, a chief creative officer. They're bringing Hollywood people into their companies to create IP that is built around the brands because they're like, Hollywood's too expensive now. They're not moving forward. I need to just get stuff out because I need consumers and customers that are buying my brands. So they're taking over Hollywood very much so. From the traditional Hollywood, though, those that adapt and use AI are going to be the ones that win. Um, an audience cares about one thing. Am I entertained? Am I entertained? Are they going, oh, well, that was AI created. That's not real. No, it doesn't matter. That's why there's so many different genres of entertainment. If I love romantic comedies, then great, be the best at romantic comedy. Guess what animation is? Animation is not so far from AI. And we're not screaming from the rafters, like, oh, it doesn't matter. What matters is the best output. So for me, Hollywood better adopt because AI is going to take over and somebody's going to figure out. It's already happening. From a real estate space, this is where it gets a little tricky. I think a lot of people right now, it's funny, Hollywood's adopted it hasn't adopted it, so they're scared. In the real estate world, they have adopted, but they don't understand the power of AI. They buy a tool, and all of a sudden, your unique voice, the fingerprint that you only have, now gets homogenized because you don't know how to work with AI. You just know that you need it. So you have it, and what outputs is the same, the same, the same, the same. So what your uniqueness is lost because it's being put in this blender, and all of a sudden it spits out with everything else. So I believe that in real estate, there's going to be those that really understand. I'm going to take some time to figure out what my unique ingredient is, and then I'm going to use AI as an advantage. You think when you think about cold calling, if you have a distressed home, you're behind on your payments, you're going to get how many postcards, how many phone calls. That's what's happening with AI right now. What separates one person getting the deal from not? That's what's got to happen with AI right now is what separates you and utilize it. Then all of your systems and processes, again, if you have the mindset of I can help more people faster and cheaper and offer better pricing because all my costs are low, that's the mindset you need to have around AI. I think there's crazy headlines out there that if you're not using AI, it's going to kill your business. I go a step further. If you're using AI incorrectly, it's going to kill your business. You need to learn how to utilize it. We're also we're at a such a small percentage of really where AI is going in 6 months to 12 months. So just having both ears open, knowing where it's going, what you utilize today is going to be very different in 6 months and 12 months and 18 months. That's the scary part. The scary part is you have to keep evolving and learning. So that education thing that you need to continually do, that continuous learning, you need to do it. But for me, I do believe AI is really helping the distressed seller even more so than it ever has. The problem is it's probably getting inundated with so much garbage. There's a thing with AI called GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. So you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. Don't be that person. Be that one that utilizes AI that can touch more people faster that needs your call.
I saw Gary Vaynerchuk. He gave almost an identical answer to what you just said about Hollywood and how it's disrupting it. And he said, you have these brands where before they would dump all this money into advertising and commercials, but instead they're now taking that production approach. They're hiring people from Hollywood, bringing them in, and whether it be a Labubu or something along those lines, and they're creating these whole marketing empires around this product versus going and advertising the product inside of these other empires. And so it's just the power of being able to allow the small guy to fight. And what I love about AI is it really does equal the playing field. So for you guys who are going up against Red Door and Home Light and We Buy Ugly and all these in these markets, leveraging these tools to be a little bit more efficient in your marketing copy, to be more efficient in your spend, to be able to run better comps, all these tools that are available, people who are small don't realize the big guys don't have it all figured out. They've just spent a lot more money and they've done it for a long time, but they're not as nimble as you. They have boards. They don't get to move. This money loves speed. And so I'm really excited for the smaller guys to be able to leverage this technology. I'd say in the circles that I roll in, you're known as like the branding strategist. Like you're really big on personal branding and being able to take this. I know we didn't get to cover it in this podcast, but I think if you guys have found value and interest in this, wait till you check all this stuff out on him. So how do they find out about the $2 bill brand and everything about you from a branding perspective? And how do people find out more about you, Brad?
Thank you. For the one thing, I think your zone of genius is the thing that you need to figure out, and that's the one thing that AI is going to help you with is really amplify that, and that's something that I do help with tremendously. So I have a brand called $2billbrand.com. It's the number two bill brand, $2billbrand.com. If you there's an email capture right there. I promise I will not spam you. It's none of that. I believe I have a lot of great content. I produce content every day. So if you also want to talk about one of the things we haven't talked about, especially in the real estate world, your brand is everything and it's being created with or without you. So why don't you control it? I have a system in place that I utilize that literally me as a solo person, I produce content every day. Not because I know how to do it for 22 years, but I've developed a system that does that. And it's not about being viral. It's not about metrics. It's about quality over quantity. Everybody talks about if I post at 9 a.m., if I do that, like get rid of all of that. Good content will find the customer. That's it. Now, my job that I can help you with is to meet that. What content should you be creating for the ideal customer, your dream customer? So $2billbrand.com. Also, and I love pushing people this because I really spend a lot of time on it. I've got a YouTube channel. It's the name that my mom named after me, Bradley Holcman, Bradley Holcman. It's a nod to my mom because she loves it. My YouTube channel, I post Monday through Friday every day, at least 10 minutes, probably 10 to 15 minute, some thought leader piece on that. And then also LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I post every day. If you are a real estate investor, and you're not out on social media or getting into real estate, you need to start today. Social media does not convert overnight. Content does not convert overnight. How many of you have found a show in its fourth season, sixth season, seventh season? It just
Great
takes
point.
time. It
Gosh, that's so good.
You got to be consistent. You got to be out there. Also, be that. It's funny. Social media right now also is the equivalent, not because it's bad, but junk mail, right? So junk mail you get every month. You get that lawn care company, and you throw it away. You throw it away. You throw away. Just like if you're having a postcard to a distressed property. But 5 years from now, I have a grass problem. Oh, wait, for 5 years, I've been getting that thing that I've thrown away. Now I'm ready to convert. That's what social media is. You know people are watching. You know it. They're just not converting because they're not there yet. So be that person that's always in the front. In a very short amount of time, I was in a fraternity at University of Michigan. I was just back for a little reunion a couple weeks ago. None of my friends are in television, entertainment, or branding. All they couldn't stop talking about was how's the $2 bill brand going? How's the $2? Because it finds the right people. It finds the people that you're talking to. So again, do not live in metrics or vanity, but you need to live in this world and put yourself out there. Gary Vaynerchuk does say this. Everything that I just said, 100% of it's free. Has there ever been a time where I can talk to every person on this planet for free and potentially have that one relationship change my life? No. At some point, that's going to change. So do it now. But if you don't know what to talk about, I can help you. But also, nobody cares. Just talk, just share, put the reps in, and then you'll hone your message. For 6 months, I didn't know what I was talking about. And all of a sudden, people started repeating things back that I was saying. And I'm like, oh, wait, I love that. I have a story behind that. That's how we didn't talk about this. My real estate company is called Dill Pickle Properties. Pickles was everything about me, and that's what I look at as a home. A cucumber is a distressed property because a cucumber is boring and tasteless, but when you renovate it, it becomes a pickle, a beautiful home, and something that is and fight me on this, by far the best food on this planet. So I called it. What did my mom? My mom saw this. My mom goes, your first word that you ever spoke was pickle.
No.
I was like, so just keep talking, keep putting yourself out there. There's the only person that hates your voice is you. The only person that hates what you look like on camera is you. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. In fact, the myth in Hollywood is we put pretty people on camera. In scripted, yeah, for the most part. But in reality, in unscripted, do you have something that makes you distinct and different that sticks out? Not every person that's in my shows are pretty, sorry, but they're standout worthy. They're great. They don't have a face for radio. That's a myth too. We want you to stick out. So I encourage everybody, put yourself out there. It's it, it's everything. It's you want to connect with somebody. And the best way to connect is seeing somebody visually and hear the words coming out of their mouths.
I love it. I love your content. Obviously, follow them on IG, $2billbrand.com. Go there, get in the funnel, experience it, understand. I think what's so cool about today's conversation, it's this fine line between educational and motivational, and it's kind of like guides, and it pulls me along. And I really value that, and I appreciate that, because I think you fill in a lot of gaps about human behavior and psychology that only somebody with your experience could have. When you've communicated to the masses through various mediums, you come to find those similarities or across all channels. And I think that's what you'll get. And I love your words about having that personality branding. I think everybody does need to focus on it. It is the economy now where I'm selling myself before I sell my product. And so I really value him and I appreciate your time. I think we could have gone probably for another 2 hours because maybe it's just because your list of accomplishments and achievements and thought processes. But Brad, I genuinely thank you for coming out and speaking to the Leads to Deal followers.
Thank you. And anybody, this is all moot if none of your listeners aren't doing anything about it.
Amen.
So my job is not good enough until all of you take action. So if you do, please reach out to Scott. Tell him that you're doing things, not about me. It's about you. Let this be the motivation for you, and let today be the day that your life changes forever.
I love it. Let's get it, guys.